When did you realize that the person you trusted was a wolf in sheep's clothing? I was 13 when Dad left me and my little sister with his brother Gary. Dad was taking some overseas contract job that paid triple his salary 3 months after Mom died from cancer. Uncle Gary was a decorated police officer, and Dad kept saying we were lucky to stay with someone who protects kids for a living. The worst part was when Dad pulled me aside before leaving and said he knew Gary had some anger issues, but we'd be fine if we didn't provoke him. The first week, Uncle Gary put on this perfect uncle act. He made us pancakes and took us to the movies. Juliet was only 8 and thought he was the coolest uncle ever because he let her ride in his police car. I wanted to believe it too, but something felt off about how he watched us all the time. Then the rules started. We couldn't talk to the neighbors because they were nosy troublemakers. We had to give him our phones for safekeeping so we could focus on homework. We had to call him sir instead of Uncle Gary because respect was important. Juliet thought it was a fun game at first. The first time he hit me, I was shocked. I'd asked if we could call Dad, and he backhanded me so hard I tasted blood. He stood over me in his uniform and said that talking back was disrespectful. Juliet started crying, and he grabbed her shoulders and shook her until she stopped. That night, he made us write lines about respecting authority until our hands cramped. Things got bad fast after that. He had this wooden paddle he called the attitude adjuster that he'd make us fetch ourselves when we messed up. Juliet forgot to say sir once, and he hit her palms 20 times until they were swollen and purple. When I tried to put ice on them, he pushed my face into the freezer door and held it there until I couldn't breathe. He knew exactly where to hurt us. He'd grab the soft skin under our arms and twist until we screamed. He'd make us kneel on uncooked rice for hours. Once Juliet spilled juice, and he made her hold encyclopedias above her head until her arms gave out, and hit her with them when they dropped. The bruises were always where clothes would cover them. The school nurse noticed marks on Juliet's arms during a checkup. She called CPS immediately, but Uncle Gary showed up at the school in full uniform before they arrived. He spun this whole story about how we were acting out after Mom's death and showing behavioral problems. He had fake documentation about our issues, and his partner backed him talking about all of Gary's community service awards. The nurse apologized for wasting everyone's time. That night, he made us strip to our underwear and stand in the garage. He showed us his service weapon and explained how kids who told lies about cops disappeared. He said if we ever tried that again, he'd make sure we were separated into different foster homes. Then he turned the hose on us and sprayed us with cold water until we were shaking and begging. The torture got creative after that. He'd put soap in our mouths and make us hold it there during dinner. He'd wake us up by yanking our hair and dragging us out of bed. Juliet started wetting herself from fear, and he'd make her sleep in the bathtub without blankets. When she got sick from it, he wouldn't take her to the doctor. He made her drink medicine for dogs that he got from his K9 unit. Our neighbor, Mr. Lipton Wanis, elderly veteran, who noticed we looked skinnier every week. He saw the fear in our eyes when Uncle Gary's cruiser pulled up. He tried to bring us food once, and Uncle Gary threatened to arrest him for trespassing. He told him he'd plant drugs in his house if he didn't mind his own business. After that, nobody on our street would even look at us. I tried telling my favorite teacher, Ms. Duty. She listened to everything and seemed horrified, but she called Uncle Gary directly as a professional courtesy since they both worked for the city. That night, he tied us to chairs in the basement and left us there all weekend. He came down every few hours to hit us with his belt and remind us what happened to liars. Everything exploded during one of his poker nights with his cop buddies. Juliet was bringing drinks to the table and accidentally spilled beer on his uniform. I watched his face change and knew it was going to be bad. He grabbed her by the throat right in front of everyone and started choking her. His friends just looked away like cowards. He dragged her upstairs by her hair while she screamed. I heard her bedroom door slam and terrible sounds. Something in me snapped. I ran outside screaming for help at the top of my lungs. Mr. Lipton came out and I begged him to call 911 and say it was a medical emergency. He saw the desperation in my eyes and did it. When the paramedics arrived for the heart attack, they heard Juliet screaming. They pushed their way in and found her unconscious with finger marks on her neck. Uncle Gary tried to say she'd fallen, but the paramedics weren't buying it. They called for backup, and suddenly cops who weren't his friends were there. At the hospital, a doctor examined us both. She documented every bruise and scar and old fracture. She didn't care about Gary's badge or reputation. She called the state police instead of local cops and filed her report with prosecutors directly. They arrested Uncle Mike that night, but when Dad arrived the next morning, he wasn't alone. He brought Uncle Mike's lawyer and 2 cops from Mike's precinct. They said there'd been a misunderstanding and the charges were being reviewed. Full story on the channel linked below.